Introduction to the research topic. I just want you to know how inspired I am by your teaching, and I'm so excited to do the project you assigned. This was a personal communication to me from R. Heinzman, a student in my U.S. History class. As educators, we hope that students find our classes meaningful and that what they learn from us carries them for a lifetime. The project to which she is referring was a service learning project that was assigned as part of the U.S. History course to reiterate the concept of civic responsibility. The challenge for educators is to find classroom experiences that will stimulate learning in all students. However, college students are complex, so courses that address various modes of learning are attractive to students. Pascarella and Terenzini, through their research of college students, conclude the impact of college is largely determined by the individual's quality of effort and level of involvement in both academic and non-academic activities. My name is Kim Stokes, and I teach for Columbus State University, the History and Geography Department. I'm an adjunct instructor of U.S. History to 1865. The problem that I saw with my students was that they seemed to be only taking my class because it was a core class, a required class, and they were checking off a box. So I wondered how I could make history a little more engaging. How could I make history relatable to modern times? The purpose of this study is to research how we teach history. What are the best ways to engage students? We normally do this through experiential learning, or real-life experiences that are brought into the classroom. Too often, students consider learning history as a memorization of names, dates, and events. This, considered by some to be a boring prospect. Learning history is often considered a waste of time. According to Peckran and Weiner, this type of boredom emotion can adversely affect the success of a student in class and can be a risk factor of achievement in other discipline areas. Boredom with subject matter appears in student feelings when and how content is presented in the classroom. Parker says boredom arises from being over or under challenged, unchanging academic routines, meaningless classroom tasks. Experiential learning is a teaching method used to engage students with classroom content. Similarly, service learning is a strategy of experiential learning. And so with this study, service learning as a component of experiential learning will be used to evaluate if there is an impact on the student in their learning of history. And so having said that, the research question for this study is, what impact will service learning have on students in an online U.S. History course? The review of the literature for this study begins with a definition of core courses and then flows into a discussion on the instructional practices used to teach history in higher education. There are three central areas that make up the methods by which history is taught in higher education. They are traditional forms, active learning, and experiential learning. Traditional forms to learning the factual information of history include lectures and seminars. Researchers define the lecture as instructional communication between instructors and students where both communicate orally about course content. There are two schools of thought about lectures in higher education. Either they are remembered fondly for the lecturer who enlivens the talk with passion and well thought out imagery and activity, or the lecturer and lecturer are thought of as tedious and unimaginative and bogged down with endless note-taking. Along these same lines, Sculio argues that the audience is a key feature of the lecture that should be recognized and engaged in order to be effective. As much as lecturing can benefit a student, the fact remains that often learners are not enthusiastic about the method. Incorporating active learning techniques allows students to engage with the materials and allows them to collaborate with peers while taking control of their own learning. D'Autolio used this technique by permitting students to draft exam questions based off of lectures given in the course. The student-centered activity showed positive results, not only in exam scores, but also in students who were during the lecture were passive and not active. As Tertullian explains, the results were noticeable. Students who had not been participating actively began to share insights with peers and in general assumed greater ownership over their learning. Often history survey courses are large in number, and the idea of breaking students into small groups can be effective in not only student learning but also socialization. Higher education administrators and faculty agree that students are more likely to succeed with instruction that appeals to and reaches a broad spectrum of students. Experiential learning is a valuable experience for students and instructors. The instructor and student may experience success, failure, adventure, risk-taking, and uncertainty because the outcomes of the experience cannot be totally predicted. A common definition for experiential learning is any learning that supports students in applying their knowledge and conceptual understanding to real-world problems or situations where the instructor directs and facilitates learning. Experiential learning is based on the fundamental ideas that are described as an ongoing process, integrated with prior knowledge, holistic endeavors that add to the process of creating knowledge. In short, experiential learning is by doing. Students are given particular learning experiences inside and outside the classroom, such as apprenticeships, clinical experiences, internships, field work, and service learning. These types of activities meet instructional goals of learning by being an active process of constructing rather than acquiring knowledge. Education occurs as knowledge is constructed from experience, and learning is a personal interpretation of the world. The specific benefits of experiential learning to students include building social skills, work ethic, practical expertise. This type of education can also lead to more powerful academic learning. An institution of higher learning, experiential practices can be used across many disciplines. Studies suggest that experiential learning is a necessary and appropriate instructional component in higher education that leads to student success and preparedness. The success of experiential learning lies in real-world applicability that students take away from the course. Students who attend classes where experiential learning is a component are more likely to improve their learning. Studies suggest that students are more likely to apply previous knowledge and skills, obtain new knowledge and skill, and reflect upon their learning afterward. Students look for classes that will help them with professional skills and ability, as well as something that will set them apart in a competitive job market or help them in career advancement. Authentic learning is a form of experiential learning, helps accomplish this. Students who learn authentically are able to connect task performance to solving of current and future problems and situations. It is through experience and authenticity where learning occurs, when tasks and activities are meaningful rather than not trivial or useless. Service learning is a strategy of experiential learning. Strader and Sauer define the general format of service learning modules that include students participating in community service as a part of their academic work, reflecting on the community context in which the service is provided, and finally, developing an understanding of the connection between the service and their academic work. Service learning, when incorporated into academic classes, works well. Tinto, 1998, states that students who are actively involved in learning activities and spend more time on tasks, especially with others, are more likely to learn and in turn more likely to stay. Service learning in academia has a long history and is primarily tied to civic education. Hepburn explains studying the community by being involved in the community is found in literature since the turn of the century. In addition, courses that promote citizenship education are political science, political education, civic education, and social studies courses. However, service learning as a pedagogy has been used for a variety of discipline-specific courses to include health science, English, technical writing, philosophy, sociology. Service learning has been conducted in history courses as well. McCrae lays out the criteria for conducting service learning courses in courses that have the following components. The service learning project meets a community need. The student learning must be integrated with the course objectives. Students reflect on their experience, and the relationship between the student and the community are mutually beneficial. The void in this literature among these studies is where service learning was used as an academic course, lying the second criteria of McCrae, where the student learning is integrated with the course objectives. The study conducted by this research will seek to connect students through service learning to specific historical concepts learned. The research design for this study will focus on using an experiential learning strategy, which is service learning, to engage students with historical content in a higher education core history course. Therefore, the researcher will use experiential learning theory as a framework for the study. Experiential learning theorists describe learning as the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. Knowledge results from the combination of grasping and transforming experience. The design of inquiry for this study will be qualitative, a qualitative case study of recruited students from an online U.S. history course. Case study is chosen because the study participants are bounded by a specific time, one semester and activity, and a service learning project. In an effort to provide detailed description of the case study, the data is triangulated as part of the data collection strategy. The collected data will allow for detailed analysis of individuals as they perform a service learning project, and will use a variety of data collection procedures to include interviews, journaling, focus groups via synchronous session, or perhaps an observation through documentation, which would include images and videos of the students performing the service learning project. The instrumentation used to conduct the study will be from 3 forms used in the course that students will fill out. The first documentation is that students will choose, based on their interest, one of 5 groups that are linked directly to concepts in U.S. history. Next, students will fill out an action form talking about how they will carry out their service learning. And then the last step is for students to journal about their experience, noting the impact the project had on them and their learning of history. The limitations of this study are that the research will be conducted in an online environment. The researcher will not meet face-to-face with participants. However, there will be opportunities for the participant and the researcher to meet synchronously throughout the duration of the study. Another assumption that is made is that may affect the outcome of the study is that students will be completing a service learning project but have no interest in the perceived benefits of service learning. The researcher believes students will welcome the opportunity to perform a service learning project and will discover essential benefits about themselves and their knowledge of history. However, this may not be the case. Some students may come into the course with the preconceived notion that they are merely checking off a requirement to graduate and will not be open-minded to experiential strategies for learning. There's a possibility that students will not make a connection between service learning and historical concepts. To eliminate these conditions, the researcher will provide guidance to the learning management system through weekly synchronous sessions. There is a potential for further research in this area. This course is being conducted in an online class, and there's not a lot of data that relates history and service learning in online classes. So there's a future in studying that a little further. The implications for the study for the field: experiential learning is a successful strategy for learning history. This particular study will not only add to history education, the teaching of history education, but also the scholarship of teaching and learning. This study is about discovery. Students bring into our classrooms their own experiences and notions about the world around them. Service learning is an experiential teaching strategy that puts students in an authentic learning situation and helps develop soft skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and communication. College students are required to take courses outside their area of interest in an effort to make them well-rounded in knowledge. History is one of these type courses that some conclude as only a bank of names, dates, and events. In an effort to engage students in history content and help develop soft skills that will serve students after college, this study is being conducted.